Do it again.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world.
You're listening to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling.
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Don't try and church it up, son.
You can't handle the truth.
I am big. The picture that got small.
Your first one's on us. Folks, you're watching Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. I love doing that, and you always look surprised every single time.
Your hand popped up. You went, fuck!
All of a sudden, I turned into Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, you did. You did.
You're watching Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. I'm your host, Mark Rigodano, and with me, as always,
Richie Byrne.
Buddy, it is good to see you.
Good to see you. Last night was an interesting show.
Very, and I gotta ask. I'm dying to know because everything's been so crazy on the show. We never got to ask you what happened to that dove.
Oh, Dave
the dove.
Dave the dove. Yeah, here's what happened, buddy. So for those of you who didn't see the show last week, a dove flew into my fence, crashed, fell right.
I'm laughing.
Right in front of me, pretty much. I'm in my kitchen watching TV. I got the door open. Smack, lands on my back porch. I thought he was dead. He gets himself up and he sits on my back porch all night. And I sat up with him till 3:30 in the morning because I didn't want him to get eaten. So then I put a milk carton over him. I went to bed. When I get up the next day, he's running around the backyard. He's running on the back porch. And then when I went to go near him, he would go down a step. But now this is the whole day, Mark. He's running around my backyard. So I called some wildlife rescue place, and they're like, he's running? And I go, yeah. And they said, well, that's usually a good sign. So they go, videotape him. So now I'm chasing him.
Now you're this goddamn bird's DP.
Yeah, I'm chasing him. And I videotape him, and I send it to the wildlife people. And they literally write back and go, he looks good. He looks good. And I'm like, I know, but he's not flying. And they go, but he doesn't look like he's hurt. So anyway, long story short, I go out for a while. I run some errands. I buy some firewood. And I'm going to go on my side of my house to put the firewood. And I go to the gate. And who comes running by me out in the front yard? Dave, running around I'm like, I guess you're my pet, Dave. So I open the gate. I go in with the firewood. He follows me right? Now he goes to the backyard. I go inside. I think we did the show. When I went out again, another bird was with him.
And the
bird
Dave was getting lucky.
Well, I think they have mates. I think that's probably who it was. And when I showed up, the bird flew into the tree, and Dave ran behind a tree. And I started laughing. I'm like, Dave, it's me.
Come on.
You were with me. So he was behind the tree, and I'm like, why won't he fly? And then about an hour later, I went out, and he was gone, and the bird in the tree was gone. I think he figured out how to fly. I think he probably couldn't find his bearings, and maybe the other bird helped him get the bearings, but he was gone. And then I sat there in my backyard. Do you remember Tony Soprano when the ducks flew away from his swimming pool and he was crying? I don't know if you saw that episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dave's gone.
Dave's just getting laid behind the tree.
Yeah, Dave's probably getting laid and I'm crying.
You're crying, starting a fire, thinking about him.
I did. I started a fire.
You go, this one's for Dave, man.
Dave.
Fucking
Dave. Dave. As far as I know, Dave made it.
Hey, finally some good news, right?
Yeah, Dave the dove.
Dave the dove. We got good news.
Matter of fact, he's out looting now. He's looting.
Oh, man. Well, before we get a
great show.
Got a great show today.
We got a great guest, and we got a quick thing to do before we bring him out.
Yes. I'll let you introduce it.
Okay. Well, every Tuesday we bring on a new dropping names where I tell a story about who I met, a celebrity who I had a moment with. And this is a great dropping names. And I'm not going to give anything away. You haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see this. I don't even know who it is about.
In the story, and here it is, my dropping names.
So I got booked for a gig, a private event at some Elks Club in New Jersey with Jackie Byrne, who was opening for me, and I love Jackie. People think we're husband and wife, brother, sister. We're not. And I got to the gig early because I was coming from another gig. So I said, let me get there early. I'll change because it was more of a formal thing. And I said, I'll change before anyone gets there. So I pull up, and the place is packed. And it's completely there's nowhere to park or anything. So I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I go into the place, and it's some sort of political rally. It's for a senator. It's a fundraiser for a guy running for senator, a Republican senator in New Jersey. And I have no idea. No one told us this was what the gig was going to be. So there's two guys at a table in front. They had to take my name. They're calling back to the guy who booked it. Where is he? And so I'm in like dirty jeans, and I got it. Everybody's in suits. So I go, where's there a men's room? So I go in this men's room to change. And the senator, the guy running for Senate, is giving a speech. And I'm changing, and he's giving a speech. And all of a sudden, he goes, but that's enough of that now. We're going to start the show. And I'm like, start the show? I'm not dressed. Jackie's supposed to go on first. She's not even there yet. I'm like, what the hell is it? So now I'm trying to dress quick. I'm like, is this guy going to bring one of us up? Blah, blah, blah. And he says, you know this guy from the radio? He's from Saturday Night Live. Give it up for Joe Piscapo. I'm like, Joe Piscapo? So I finish dressing, and I go outside, and there's Joe Piscapo doing Frank Sinatra and singing and laughing, telling jokes. Then he gives a speech. Then he goes back into comedy. He does another song. It's like a 45-minute event of Joe Piscapo. The place is going crazy. So in the middle of this, Jackie shows up. And we're like, what is going on? Why is Joe Piscapo on stage? What's happening? So we asked the kid who let us in. We're like, where's the guy that booked this? And he goes, he's up front. He's watching the show. We're like, well, we need to know what we're doing. He goes, well, what do you need to know? I'll text him. We're like, how much time? So the guy writes back, and he says, they're both doing 20 minutes. So Jackie goes, all right, I guess I'm going on after Joe Piscopo. And I even said, I go, just do 10. This is ridiculous. Don't. So Joe finally finishes, and he kills. And he says, all right, good night, everybody. And they rush the stage. Everybody's getting pictures with Joe Piscopo. They're getting autographs from Joe Piscopo. It's just Joe Piscopo, Joe Piscopo, Joe Piscopo. And there's Trump signs, and everybody's going crazy. And there's a DJ, and he's going, you know, there's more show, people. Everybody sit down. He's yelling into the mic. Everybody sit down. And Jackie and I are standing there. Like, how can we do a show now? They're taking pictures. Joe Piscopo. All of a sudden, I love Jackie. Because I would never think, she just goes, I'm going to go get a picture with Joe Piscopo. And she walks away, and I go, I kind of want a picture with Joe Piscopo, too. And we end up getting a picture with Joe Piscopo.
I love it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe your story. Nobody thinks you're husband and wife. Everyone thinks it's mom and daughter.
Well,
all right. Oh, man. Let's get this show rolling, man. We got a great guest. We have a fantastic guest. I love this guy. I remember back in the old days at Stand Up New York when I used to be at the desk. He was one of my favorite people to come in. He's one of the greatest hosts on the planet.
Yes.
Headliner all over. One of my favorites. You heard him on the radio. Folks, Pete Dominick's in the house. Pete Dominick, look at him.
Yay!
You're looking good, buddy. How are you?
I look great. I have a great light.
yes, you do.
You do. You look tan.
Yes.
I'm always, that's my normal ethnicity, pal. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Italian. I've got olive skin. Good to see you, boys. Thank you very much for having me. That was a great Joe Piscopo story. I have a Joe Piscopo story.
Do you do?
Well,
Let's hear it.
It's kind of indirect, but it's a pretty good one.
Go ahead.
This was in 2004. I get a phone call from my agent at the time. It says The Apprentice on NBC needs a host, a stand-up comedian, and they want you to do it because they'd booked Joe Piscopo, but then found out that the show was apparently non-union and Joe was in SAG, and so they needed comedians who at that time weren't, or after, I guess it was. And at that time I wasn't. and after it. And so they ended up using me on The Apprentice instead of Joe Piscapo because he couldn't do it. So it was the season finale of The Apprentice, and the teams had to do a fundraiser. And one of the teams thought they'd do a comedy show with Yahoo.com as the sponsor. So Joe ends up showing up, and I don't know why he could be on it, but not on stage. It was a weird technical thing, but he did show up and hang out there and talk to all of us. And they did the scene where Joe was talking to all of the comedians. And there was this moment, and this caught on camera, I still got the tape, where they said, Mr. Trump will be here soon. Would you like to meet him? And maybe this wasn't on camera. Maybe it was off camera. I gotta look in this. They said, would you like to meet him? And I looked at the other comics. There was a few other comics. Jim Florentine was one of them. Mike Somerville, I think Carrie Louise. And I said, I don't need to meet him. Does he want to meet us? And they said, well, I'm not sure, but if you'd like to meet him, we can try to arrange it. And I just looked at the other comics. I was like, I'm good. And we never ended up meeting Trump. But we did perform in front of all like Trump's people, and his like right-hand guy on that show. And apparently in his real estate company was a guy named George, this old guy named George. And you do see me on the final cut of the show say, George is here. Good to see you, George. Now, George is a veteran, everybody. Now, George, I'm sorry, I always forget, Confederate or Union? He's very old. Civil War joke. And then they cut to the Apprentice people, and they're like, oh my God, Pete Dominick, the comedian, is making fun of Trump's right-hand man. This is very bad.
So you were actually doing that before it was cool. You were ahead of the curve.
Well, no, not really. Everybody made fun of Donald Trump. He was always a joke. Like, let's not forget, this guy had that hair and that orange skin and his weird braggadocio on all the late night shows and on Howard. He was always a weird, obnoxious, but entertaining guy, but he was always super weird.
So real quick before we get going into this, because we already kind of jumped in full steam. Pete's taking a drink. So the way we start every show, what are we drinking, boys?
What are you drinking, Pete?
I've got a pink lemonade spritzer.
Okay.
I love it. Pete, you and I are going to get along well on this episode because my drink, I got the ice cubes. They're actually the Death Star.
Yes,
they're made to look like the Death Star.
That's great. That seems like the kind of thing that someone got you as a gift, a Death Star ice cube tray, because we don't care about you that much.
Yeah, I get to use it like twice a year. And then I have
pure drinker
Stateside vodka that was delivered to my house during the quarantine. And then because the store in my town is not open, I'm going to use an Honest Kids Berry Good lemonade.
Oh, dear. Oh, wow.
To mix with the vodka.
Okay. All right. As long as you're not.
That's
Big Gay Nick. I have to say this. Big Gay Nick wrote, "That's rather faggy."
Oh my God, Big Gay Nick.
Yeah.
Watching, holy cow, law.
And then wrote, "That's totally gay."
I mean, when that's like from a deli owner. That's a rave.
Richie, what are you drinking?
What's up, Nick?
Well, you went through all that shit, Mark, and I got Johnny Black on the rocks, my go-to.
You're a man.
Favorite.
You are a man.
On the glass, in case I forget my name. Look, my name's on the glass, just in case.
Clearly another gift.
Yeah.
Speaking of gifts, my glass, which you can't see, is actually etched from Kilbegan's whiskey, which was a drinking thing that I got to go to. It's one of the oldest whiskey distilleries in Ireland, and they came over and they actually bought bourbon barrels, and they made the first Irish bourbon. And I got to go to the tasting with a good friend of mine, and it was one of the most delicious bourbons I've ever had, made in Ireland.
I just got past a note from your producer. It just says nobody cares. So weird. I thought I liked that story. I liked hearing about that distillery.
Pete, I passed it to you so you wouldn't tell anybody.
Thank you.
So what's going on? Do you have a joke for us? Do you have a joke?
Oh yeah, I do have a joke.
All right.
We already there?
Oh yeah.
We never know when we're gonna go there. We're going.
Okay.
You want to go there now? You want to wait?
No, go. Let's do this.
Let's
So-
do this.
A mother is in the kitchen making dinner for her family when her daughter walks in and says, "Mom, where do babies come from?" The mother thinks for a few seconds, says, "Well, dear mommy and daddy fall in love and we get married. And one night we go in the bedroom and kiss and hug and we have sex." The daughter looks puzzled. So the mother continues, "That means, sweetheart, that daddy puts his penis in mommy's vagina. That's how you get a baby, honey." The child seems to comprehend. "Oh, I see. But the other night when I came into your room, you had daddy's penis in your mouth. What do you get when you do that?" Mommy looked at the daughter and said, "Jewelry, my daughter, jewelry."
That's fantastic.
Now, Pete Dominick, you're an interesting guest for us.
Am I?
Yeah, because you're the only guest who did our comic strip show, our audio show, and we never got to air it because all the shit hit the fan the week we were going to air it with the pandemic, and we thought, is this the right thing to do?
I've been there. Yeah, I had a couple of things like that where I had to shelve them as well. Yeah, no, I hear it. Yep.
And we decided to go to this format a week later, and we decided to go 5 days a week, which is crazy. God bless you all those years on the radio doing that.
Yeah, I'm doing my podcast every day now too, all alone. I'm producing, editing it.
Really? Wow. But that's right. Mark and I have been saying we got to have Pete on because you got blocked out. You got cock blocked by the pandemic.
You got pandemic blocked.
I'm used to it. I got pandemic. I've been pandemic blocked for months.
So what's your podcast?
Called Stand Up with Pete Dominick. Every day, get it wherever you get your podcast. And I just interview really smart experts on issues each and every day. So I have 2 or 3 people usually, sometimes more, sometimes just one, but usually 2 or 3. And I just have conversations about what's happening in the world and how to deal with it. And it's about the experts. It's really about the guests. You know, that's it. Just every conversation is great because the person I'm talking to is a credible policy expert or academic or scientist or doctor, whatever. And, you know, being at Sirius for 14 years allowed me to create a pretty impressive
Sweet Rolodex.
Yeah, list of people that I could just contact. And luckily most of them like me and want to join me. So yeah, we've been talking obviously about all things regarding public health and the pandemic, and then obviously all things politics and certainly racial injustice and police civilian relationships. And it's been fascinating because the guests that I get to have on, and I also, you know, end up doing like once a week where I call up listeners like they're callers to the show and talk with them about what they're thinking about things and how they're dealing, because now
it's really cool.
As a, you know, comedians know this better than anybody. Anytime you've had an experience that other people had, anytime you can relate to somebody, that's where the comedy comes. That's where you want to write the joke. And right now we're all having this collective experience, both with the pandemic and with the protests and you know, riots and all of that. So, you know, everybody is living in this moment pretty day to day. And so there's a lot to relate to and to discuss and to navigate. And so we're helping each other get through it.
That's great, man. Wow.
That's fantastic. Nick Samata also just posted, "I've always liked you and wanted to join you." I think he's talking about in a steam room, but Pete, you're one of the coolest guys because I got to watch you blossom as a comic, because you were a guy working, and I know we talked about this on the podcast, but it never got really released. You were a guy that was working and doing like the guest spots, and, you know, guys like Nick and a lot of the guys that were the higher ups at Stand Up New York took a liking to you and realized that you were an amazing host. And to watch you go from guest spot guy to host to then you were doing the opening spots on weekends, and then I got to watch you kind of step into the big leagues play the weekends with the big comics, there would be guys like Louis C.K. and Jim Norton, and you stepped in and I got to watch you become you. And
I'm live on a show right now.
Wave, hey.
I honestly don't even know who that was.
Looter.
You know what the funniest thing was? Can you come get the dog? Are you serious? The funniest thing was she brought me a bowl of mashed potatoes. Like that's why. Thank you, Mark, for saying all those kind things. It seems like yesterday was a year ago, so it seems like that was a billion years ago. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I worked really very hard at being a good comedian and watching what all those guys were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And it was an amazing time in my life and experience. And, so many of those guys that I came up with are some of the most famous comics in the world. I had so many great experiences at Stand Up New York, and you were always such a good guy to me. And every time I saw your face, I just felt safe and warm and comfortable, unlike a lot of women in your life. And no, I'm sure, like, you're the last guy I think I'd ever be like mean or to anybody really, plus a woman. But I mean, I'll never forget. I have so many stories about Stand Up New York and about that time. And I think one of my favorites though is when Greg Fitzsimmons was killing one night, and some lady said something to him in the audience, and he called her a cunt, and he lost the whole audience, as you do. And then he proceeded to win them all back. And he came off stage, and I asked him, he didn't know who I was. I was a young comic. And I asked him, I go, why? Can I ask you why you did that? You were killing. You had them in the palm of your hand. And then you like snapped and you lost them all. And he goes, yeah, but then I won them back, didn't I? I go, yeah, you did. But why did you do that? And he goes, because comedy's too easy sometimes.
Wow.
He's like, I wanted to make it harder.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I went after him and I said the N-word 40 times, and I did not
get the same response.
Did not win anybody. I didn't have them on my side to begin with. That might have been my first mistake.
But and so what was crazy is I left Stand Up New York. I moved on to like trying to pursue my own career, and next thing I know, you're doing TV. You have your own radio show. You did everything the right way. You did it the way that people believe the system works, and it doesn't always work that way. You do see a lot of really great guys who get passed on, and it was really awesome to see one of the good guys do it and get the right responses.
It means a lot to me. I think probably it's just a matter of, it was never a matter of talent for me. It was always a matter of grit and just like not wanting to drown. Like I so badly wanted to be successful as a comedian. And I think I hope that this is the quality and the trait that has kept me successful throughout my career, even after losing my job after 14 years at SiriusXM, which is, you're going to fail and you're going to have setbacks and there's going to be all kinds of obstacles in the way, but I just never wanted, I did whatever it would possibly take to succeed, short of obviously being like obnoxious or overbearing. There's a really, I think, smart balance that you have to strike so you don't become that guy who's constantly annoying everybody for spots, and you want to be understated but also hardworking, and I think I figured that out. I saw the people who were really successful and I copied a lot of what they did, and like I said, I didn't copy a lot of the things that I thought they did wrong. So I learned a lot from people who had gone ahead of me. And the other thing is, nobody would ever help me. Like I asked a bunch of successful comedians, I won't name their names because it just doesn't seem like a classy thing to do, but I know who they are, to help me. I said, can I just pick your brain? Can I buy you lunch? Can I find out more about comedy? And they never did. And so when young comics have done that with me, or young people in broadcasting and other, parts of the industry that I've now branched out to over the years, I always make time. I make it a priority to do that. And I don't think I don't think anybody needs to be hazed. I think life is a hazing. I think the business is hazing.
This is hard enough.
I had guys who did help me and give me advice. So I always had the same attitude as you. If I felt that I had to pass it forward. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
pay it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you dealt with that. You had to deal with it.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to help people in any kind of business because they don't. Why? Why would I give you all of my advice, all of my secrets, and share all my experience so that you can succeed and take the work? You know, Steve Byrne is a great comedian and a great guy. And Steve, I'll never forget, early on, Steve had a lot of success like right away. Like Steve
right away.
really struggled. And I'm not going to say that he should have struggled. He was a very good comic and he had a great hook and brand and presence. And so we started together, but he kind of took off right away and started getting, you know, bookings. It was not like he was a star overnight, but he was getting work as a comic. And he started doing colleges. And I said that, you know, I asked him about that. I was like, how do I get into colleges? He goes, I'll call my college agent for you. He called his college agent for me and she signed me. And the thing about that is I then became in direct competition with him. You know, colleges is not really, you know, you're in or you're out, and you submit your agent. You have an agent. They submit you to the conferences where the college students buy you, or they don't. But they were me and Steve. We were in direct competition with the same agent. He never saw it that way. He just didn't. He was secure and confident enough in his own talent and his own career. And I'm still with that agent, Kate McGill at Sophie K. And I will never forget Steve for doing that, and for a lot of other things that Steve did. There's a lot of comedians that people don't know that have, you know, Joe Rogan's another guy who is a very controversial guy a lot of times with the things that he says, but Joe helps out a ton of comics that you would never know, pays for their health care and hooks them up with all kinds. You know, it's like there's a lot of guys out there who on the surface you might not know it, but underneath it all, they're doing everything they can to help other people. And that's the guy and the person I always wanted to be.
Yeah. I and there's also on the opposite. I've had a lot of guys who in front of people, I'd get off stage. I go, "You're really funny, man. I give me a call. I'll get you some work." Then I call them and I get treated like a stranger calling. I'm like, "You told me to call. Like, if you don't want me to call, I won't." And they really made me feel like less than. And it's what's that?
Tony Woods. Tony Woods.
I worked with John Manfrotati years ago. Remember John Manfrotati?
I don't think so.
He was from Everybody Loves Raymond. He was Ray's best friend and Gianni. And
he's the guy that you see on comedy shows and you go, that guy's too good looking to be a comedian.
Yeah, he's been on everything. and John's a great guy, and he's a very straightforward guy. We worked together one weekend and I drove and I'm driving him back and I drop him off at his apartment. And I'll never forget, he just turns and goes, you know, I could probably help you get you in, but I'm not gonna, so who we bullshit.
I love it.
Right. And in honesty, over the years, I worked with him a lot, and he was always great to me. So, but it was just so, and I knew what he meant. Like, don't call me. Let's not fake it here. You know.
Well, you know, it's like this too, and it's not just in comedy. I mean, everything we're talking about applies to life and to every job and every industry. But a lot of times, you do stuff for people in hopes that you'll get something back, and not only from the universe, but from them directly, or they help you because you can give them something right now, a ride to the gig, or the spots at another gig, but that should never be the impetus. And it's easy to make it be that. Like, if I help this person, then this is going to happen. But the truth is, you shouldn't keep track of the favors that you do in life. You should just do your best to be a generous person. And I truly believe that I have carried myself that way my whole career, which is why things, when I lost my job at Sirius, have really worked out. I mean, it wasn't easy and not even remotely close. It's still not. And it's frightening. When I last talked to you guys, it was a lot worse than it is now. But my reputation is that I you know, all those favors I did for people literally every day almost because I had, you know, that platform at SiriusXM allowed me to help so many different people as well as CNN and other places that I worked and people I knew. And so, like, I didn't want to ask the universe for help, but I realized how good it made me feel. I didn't realize this, actually. Someone taught me this. Tom Shadyac, film director, and great
director.
Became a good friend of me, of mine, and did a documentary called I Am, and he wrote a book, Life's Instruction Manual. And Tom said to me in the depth of my depression after losing my job, he said, you have to let people help you. You have to ask for help. And I said, I don't want to. It doesn't make, I feel uncomfortable asking for help.
Yeah, me too.
And he said, when you help people, how does it make you feel? I said, it makes me feel good. But
yeah.
he goes, well, it would make me feel good. It makes other people feel good if you allow us to help you. And it took for him, someone of his stature maybe, to say that for it to really resonate. And after that, I just started reaching out. I really just started reaching out to people, prominent people that I knew in my life, connected people that I knew in my life. And I said, this is my situation. I need help. And I mean, to a person, they've come through for me.
Well, that says a lot about you.
And Tom like gave up all of his possessions at the peak of his career. He kind of let go of his possessions. Right?
What a lot of people never realize, which is, material wealth does not bring happiness. Man sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices his money to recuperate his health. And then he's so anxious about the future that he doesn't live or enjoy the present. The result is he doesn't live in the present or the future. He lives as if he's never going to die. Then he dies never having really lived.
Well,
wow. That's deep.
That drinks, jokes, and story time. No, I'm kidding.
I know. Jesus, where do we go from here?
Romney said that. He was the Dalai Lama.
But I was going to ask you who the agent was because I had a feeling it was Kate. I love Kate.
Yeah, Kate McGill is.
I actually want to bring her on the show. I've told Mark that I'm going to call her. I think she'd be a great interview. It's
a great idea. She probably has a billion stories. Whether or not she wants to tell them or name names, she could still tell them without naming names. She's just a no-nut. Like I never wanted to be on her bad side. She's a really smart business person. And
we were open micers together back in the day. So and then I remember recently, I think I said to Joel something about I should call my friend Kate McGill, and he goes, Kate McGill? Like he was like, what do you mean your friend Kate McGill? It was about something we need. And I don't think I just think of her as Kate McGill, and everyone's like, no, she's really huge. And I'm like, good for her, man. I'm proud of her.
Yeah, she's doing well. She quit smoking, if you could believe it.
Did she really? Wow.
I always like to say that to shock people. Someone who smoked cigarettes for 20 years. When you find out they quit, you're like, oh, I guess anything is possible, because you never thought that person was going to quit smoking. It was at this day and age, not many people still smoke cigarettes a lot. So when I found that out, I was super happy.
Yeah, good for her. She's the best. I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else now that we had that awkward lull, Mark?
I know. I don't know why that happened.
Here's how. Well, it's because we
seen something.
I thought I was going to ask a question, and he thought I was going to ask a question, and we just stared at each other like.
You know what? I think it's time for a clip. Let's watch a little bit of Pete Dominick stand up while we all get our breath back.
Yeah.
My wife and I talked for a minute about an open marriage, and I mean for a minute. She's like, would you be okay with me having sex with another man? I was like, if the caveat is I have sex with another woman, yes, I'm fine with that. I don't own you or your body. You can do whatever you want, if I can. And she's like, you'd be all right with that? I'm like, yeah. She's like, would you want to try it? I'm like, would you? She's like, I don't think so, but would you? And I then thought about it for a second. My wife is a beautiful woman, and I am this, which is fine. I'm not atrocious. I think I'm a decent looking guy. I'm in great shape. I have an awesome personality and a great sense of humor, but I'm not getting laid tonight. My wife could go out and get laid right now by 100 men. Okay, she could just go out and be like, who wants to have sex with me? And a lot of the men, most of them would probably be like, I will. I will. It's a gorgeous woman. And I think I would have to build trust for 3 months. So no, I'm not into an open marriage.
That's great.
I love it, Pete.
I love that joke.
It's a great joke, bro.
It's so great because it's the truth. No matter where you are, what stage of marriage you're in, or dating or whatever, it's such a truth, that it's like dudes think they, oh man, I could be out there. And then when you really sit and think about it.
Look what Nick wrote.
Well,
put it up, Joey. You can get laid now by 100 men.
We bring you down to the bicycle shop down in Philly. You'd be doing all right, huh?
Oh, Nick.
Still got it. Still got it. I still got it.
So
Still got it.
what year did you start comedy?
95.
Five.
Technically, yeah. It was the first time I ever walked on stage in New York City. I did comedy in high school at a talent show, and I did comedy in college.
Where are you from originally?
Upstate New York, outside Syracuse, in the in the boons, in the boondocks.
All right.
Nice.
Wow, really? A lot of good comics come from up there. Moody McCarthy and a lot of good comics. Back in that time, that's when I was working a lot, and that area was just loaded with comedy clubs.
Is that right?
Yes.
I think the most famous or well-known well, he's not a well-known comic, he's kind of behind the scenes guy, but certainly one of the most successful people in show business is Mike Royce.
Yes.
Who is one of the nice guys in comedy, but for years he ran Ray Romano. He was the showrunner there.
Right. And he ran One Day at a Time, which was just on. And,
great guy. Great.
He's a great.
He was a Carrie client, so I got to see him a few times,
really?
but not do stand up.
Yeah. He was tremendous, funny, and Mike Royce. Yeah, and he was from up there, but I remember I literally would go from Syracuse to Watertown to Rochester to Albany, and just every weekend I was like, why do I go back home? I might as well just stay up here, So that was a good time for comedy in the up in the upstate back then,
There was a comedy club in Syracuse for years. Yeah, Wise Guys, and it always had all kinds of issues and ownership problems. But the one guy who owned it, I won't say his name again because I don't want. But he was a really mean guy, and I had just started out in comedy. And like I said, as we were talking about earlier, I was a dreamer. I knew I wanted to do this, and I knew I was funny, but I had a long way to go. And anyway, I'm doing stand up. I just started dating my now wife, and we were home visiting in Syracuse, and so I was the feature act, the middle act there at the club. And on a Thursday night, 250 people came out to see the middle act, right? Which is a big deal for a Thursday night or a middle act anywhere. And a lot of them came late to the show. And the owner of the comedy club really laid into me and let me have it. And he goes, why are all your friends walking in late? And I was just like, what an absurd, thing to say. You have 250 people here because of me. Who cares what time they come? Like, I wish they came on time too, but so he says that he really
didn't drive the bus. Jesus.
Yeah. he lays into me backstage and starts wagging his finger in my face and yelling at me. And I'm this young kid, and I'm like kind of cowering. And my wife, however, girlfriend at the time, she's the toughest woman I know now, and she certainly was then. And she didn't care about my career or anything but that day. She's a pretty in the moment person. She stands in between me and him, and she just lays into this guy. She goes, who the fuck do you think you are talking to? Who do you think you are talking to? If he weren't here, you wouldn't have these people making money. It's not his fault and she just laid into him. And I was like, can you not yell at the guy who owns the comedy club in my hometown? It'd be great. I remember also at the same time, just really falling deeper for her because she stuck up for me in that way that I wasn't sticking up for myself. And it was amazing Syracuse moment.
Cool. We lost Mark. We never lose Mark.
Oh, he passed away. I think that's probably karma, Rich.
I was going to say, that's how Mark and I got the show. He defended me one night, and I knew it was love.
Oh, really?
What happened, buddy?
My camera unplugged.
Oh, what kind of outfit are you running?
Real fly by night. By the way, Pete, I know you're in a rush when we come off, but when we're done, stay backstage so you can tell me which club owner it was, because I've narrowed it down, but I'm still not sure which one it was.
It could be one of many.
Don't I have your number? I'll just text you right now.
Okay, that's a good idea. So
he's a monster.
By the way, just
a happy person.
Speaking of texts, during the show, I got a text about the one gig I still had left on the books that might happen. Just got canceled, July 25th.
How are you doing? What are you doing? You did really well, with the warm up stuff, like I did.
everything went to shit in 1 week. I literally, on March 11th, I did my last warm-up show. They were going to do shows without an audience. And then March 14th, March 13th and 14th, I did gigs. And by March 16th, it was all over. It was done. Everything was done. And the Oz people tried to do a week, and then somebody got the virus, and they had to close that down. But he actually was working from his basement doing live shows and bringing in the shit we already had in the can. So I think they got through the season. But I don't know. Thank God we were almost done with the season, so I didn't really lose a lot from them. But I don't know what the fall's going to bring. I don't know if there's going to be a crowd. They may do shows without an audience. I have no idea, dude. I have no idea. My career has never been this up in the air, you know? And
yeah, but I mean, is there comfort knowing that it has nothing to do with you? It's like, when you say my career, it's like, yeah, so is Kevin Hart's. So is, Bill.
You know what?
But my problem is that they have savings accounts that I don't have.
No doubt about it. But, money is obviously an issue for but at the same time, certain wealthy comedians or people, while they make a lot of money, they have, huge mortgages on their mansions and their private schools.
Yeah, they do spend more.
But I don't feel bad for them. Don't get me wrong. But the point is, I went through a really interesting thing. Losing my job, I was all alone. I felt like a failure. I felt like a loser. I felt like no one had ever.
I remember you came on the show and you were so down that day.
Oh yeah, it was awful, and it was for a long time. But I felt after this happened, I don't feel alone anymore. Everybody's in this situation, and it's nobody's fault. There's not much you can do. Everybody's trying to adapt and figure things out. I'm glad that I didn't have to rely on comedy and haven't for years because of what I was doing at SiriusXM, that I've been able to roll that into monetizing a podcast. But, and I like what I'm doing with the podcast and with broadcasting more than comedy anyway. I mean, it's so much. Yeah, it's a lot. It's just a lot in many ways easier, in many ways, obviously harder, but it's just different. It's more enlightening and more rewarding in a lot of ways. I don't have to travel. I always hated leaving my family, so that's hard for me.
I hear you. Well, for me, I got to be honest. The one thing I've done, and thank God for Mark and Joel and Joey because of it, we've been very creative since this all started, and we've been doing this show 5 nights a week. We're working on some other projects. Nothing's paying, but at least I didn't just sit in a chair and go, "Fuck it, nothing I can do," We've worked very hard. We do that dropping names, which you saw.
I love
it. We're doing a lot of things. We're trying.
I love that dropping names. I did a thing tonight where I started tweeting, just dropping names. I'm going to steal that idea. That's a great idea.
I got to be honest. Joey St. John is so important to that because he shoots them all and he does a great job. It looks so professionally done, and it's just that we've been having a lot of fun doing it.
I tweeted the other night. I go, I just tweeted this. I go, Kevin Costner taught me to fly fish, which is true.
Are you serious?
And the actor Treat Williams, who I'm pretty good friends with. Yeah, he's a great guy. I'm pretty good friend. He responded. It said, John Wayne taught me to ride a horse. And then other people just started. It's really funny. Like, what did a famous person, do with you? And it started.
The first celebrity I ever met in my life was Treat Williams.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So that's funny.
That's awesome.
You got to tell me a story. I'll.
He wouldn't remember, but back he was in Hair, the movie Hair. He was the star.
Joe, I hope you're recording. This is our new dropping name.
Yeah, I should save this.
I'll make sure Treat hears this. So.
Well, you know what I love about dropping names is that it's not about, hey, I was hanging out with this guy. It's always like, I just had run-ins with these people. So that's why I like what I'm doing.
Mine are only about hanging out with them.
No, I know. You told us stories on the last show that were like, oh my God. Anyway.
Actually, Richie's stories are usually celebrities that tried to kill him.
That should be its own show.
But I was a freshman in college.
Who would want to kill Richie? Who'd even be mad at Richie?
What?
Who would want to hurt you? Who would even be mad at you? I've never even been annoyed with you.
Let's get Joel out here. Let's get to rebut.
Pull Joel out.
I was doing hair in college. I was in a theater major.
Yep.
And we went to see. They interviewed. He was starring on Broadway in The Pirates of Penzance.
Yep.
And he had 2 years earlier. He had done the movie Hair, and we were all in the audience for some interview. They were doing an interview thing, and after the show, we all went up and we met him. And I was the only one. I said, "Hey, we're doing Hair at my college in Staten Island. You should come see it." And he actually came up to me and said, "When is it?" And he said, "Here's my number." And we tried to contact. He said, "I'll try and come," but he couldn't make it. And he couldn't have been a nicer guy. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He lives in Vermont. He has a
He's a tremendous actor and a really great singer too.
He's got a little plane he flies around. He's a pilot.
Yeah.
He's a fast.
Yeah, I heard that.
Very talented guy. Great guy. Yep.
Oh.
Well, I know you got to get out of here. You have we have a hard deadline because you have.
I got like 2 more minutes if we want to go. I'm doing a.
Give us the drop of names. Give us a story.
You want a drop a name story?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
We got to have you back to just do celebrity stories. I think that'd be a cool show.
Oh my God, that'd be so great. Pete, I know you're busy because it's a political time.
Yeah.
And things are going on. I know you're crazy busy, but when it slows down, know that you have a home here.
Yeah.
We would love
I'll come
to
back
have you.
anytime, guys. I love being a guest. You know, I'm usually asking questions to guests, and I love just hanging out too, and it just feels
Well,
good.
Mark and I, whenever we have a guest on who we both adore, we're both buddies, we love, it's always the best shows, and that's what we have today with you. So
Well, thank you. I feel the same way. I don't love Mark's backdrop, but other than that, I think really,
Well, I get it. You're afraid of the masculinity of a bar, but that's fine.
Is that what that is? So, okay, here's one. Bridget Moynihan, who is an actress. She's on a show called Blue Bloods, and
Treat Williams is on a lot.
Is that right? Is Treat
Yeah,
on?
he plays Tom Selleck's best friend. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
He's everywhere. So she was also famously engaged to Tom Brady, and they have a son together.
Right.
But we were backstage at a concert, a benefit concert called Global Citizen, which takes place in Central Park every September, August. And we knew each other pretty well because she would come on the radio show, and we always hit it off. And so we were hanging out backstage, and she was with her husband, her new husband, and I was with Val, my wife. And my wife doesn't know who any celebrities are, and it was, funny that Val had no idea who Bridget was. But I introduced her, and we're all sitting there talking. So Val and Bridget Moynihan's husband are really hitting it off, talking for quite a while. And Bridget and I are talking, and Bridget just says to me, she goes, "Wow, our spouses are really hitting it off. Maybe we should swap." And I said, I looked up at her, she's like 6'3", and I said, "Yes. How about now? How's now? Is now good? Or whenever? Anytime you want. Your husband can fuck my wife. Anytime." He would remember it.
Just bring up what Nick Samato put up. Just
And then
bring
the
that
other
up
thing
real
that
quick.
happened that night, which is kind of funny, at that concert, speaking of name dropping, the actor Zach Braff, who's a great guy, funny guy, super talented, but he did do kind of what I thought was kind of a douchey thing, and maybe I'm reading into it, but he kept walking while we were watching the concert. Zach Braff kept walking in front of us, clearly in hopes that Bridget Moynihan would recognize him and say hi. That was my read. Sorry, Zach. That was my read.
Jessica Kirsten's brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brother,
Yeah, rough. Was he really? He was just trying to.
Just trolling along.
That's what he kept walking back and kind of
How
looking.
do you know he wasn't trying to get your attention?
Because why would he want to be getting my
Maybe he was trying to get your wife's attention.
crap? But I think my wife doesn't know anything about celebrities. First time I hung out with Kevin Costner, the next
That's why
day,
she's the best wife ever, right?
yeah, it's a great quality. The next day after I hung out with Kevin Costner, she did tell her friends, she was bragging. She's like, "You'll never believe who Pete hung out with last night. All night he was at
Wyatt Earp.
Kevin Bacon's hotel." I go, "I've never met Kevin Bacon, sweetheart. I don't know." Bet you,
Not Footloose, baby. Not Footloose.
See, now I met Kevin Bacon and his brother. I was in Atlanta, and they showed up to a thing called Bacon Fest, unannounced. They just heard there was a music festival called Bacon Fest.
That is
and
hilarious.
Him and his brother showed up wearing bacon outsuits that looked like giant, like mascot bacons.
Humor.
Yeah,
And
I've heard great things about him.
The greatest. If you can thank everybody watching this, and you guys can thank me later. The greatest radio moment, in my opinion, just totally my opinion, Jay Thomas, Kevin Bacon. I can't recreate it, but I highly recommend you Google it. It is so cringe and so.
Really? You know, you told us that on the other show. Yeah. And I forgot to. I'll look it up.
It is so great.
We gotta put it up.
It was basically where Kevin Bacon, Jay Thomas was told not to ask Kevin Bacon a question about losing all his money to Bernie Madoff, and of course Jay Thomas went right at him.
Right. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I used to be good friends with his brother-in-law, Robbie Cedric, Kara's brother. So he always had great Kevin Bacon stories. Listen, you've been tremendous.
Dude, thank you. Thank you for sticking around as long as you did. I know there's a time crunch, but folks, everybody watching, everybody listening, please share this with your friends.
Yeah.
Show it to your friends.
Check out my podcast, please.
Yeah.
Check out Pete. Tell them where they can find everything.
Pete Dominick every day. Yeah.
Stand up with Pete Dominick.
You guys have been awesome. And that's Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. Stick around.
Last call.
Thanks for listening to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling.